It's a little history lesson for the kids out there.
That's why I'm here.
Welcome to the Putback, presented by 888 Sport. Bet either $20 on the Knicks or the Nets and get $88 in free bets with the promo code SNY88. I'm Ian Begley here with Chris Williamson. Chris, what do we have for the baseline?
Well, Ian, the trade deadline is about a week away. What's the latest you're hearing in the New York City market?
Yeah, for the Knicks, teams in touch with the Knicks recently came away with the impression that they weren't going to do anything big at the deadline. So I think you can essentially rule out maybe a Victor Oladipo deal, Bradley Beal deal. Before the season started, one of my predictions was that Oladipo trade wasn't going to happen then. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that again, that I don't think the Knicks are going to do an Oladipo deal ahead of the deadline, just based on what other teams have said with regards to their conversations with the Knicks. I think JJ Reddick is a player that's been on their radar. So maybe a deal like that where you add a veteran, not necessarily a star, to the roster to help the Knicks make this playoff push. I think that's more likely than a major deal. But obviously things can change between now and March 25th. Another name in New Orleans, Lonzo Ball, is one that some people in the organization, see the value in looking to acquire. But I get the sense that that's more of an off-season thing than a trade deadline thing, because if you trade for Ball now, you're going to have to just then sign him in the offseason because he's going to be a restricted free agent. So I think that's where things sit with the Knicks now. And obviously Andre Drummond's name came up earlier this week. On Drummond, there were some people in touch with the Knicks that felt that some of the other moves that they were thinking about didn't really align with them signing Drummond. And because of that, there was some pessimism around the idea that they would actually go ahead and sign Drummond as a buyout candidate. Obviously, Brooklyn and the Lakers will be right there too. That's the general feeling on Drummond.
And what's the latest you're hearing about Spencer Dinwiddie?
Yeah, so a lot of teams felt that Spencer Dinwiddie was going to get moved in the offseason. Obviously, it didn't happen. And now, the thinking is maybe if that James Harden trade happened before the season, Spencer Dinwiddie would have been moved. Dinwiddie, I think, is the Nets' most valuable trade chip right now, a realistic trade chip. Detroit has some interest. Miami has some interest. And both of those teams could have the cap space to sign Dinwiddie to a longer-term deal. He's got the player option after this year, but nobody expects him to pick that up. They expect him to be a free agent. So whoever trades for Dinwiddie is going to re-sign him to a long-term deal. And if you're the Nets, you're looking for maybe a big that can help you on the front line. Dinwiddie, given his value, is a player who could return that for Brooklyn.
It's time again for Ball Street, where the Knicks trend is your friend. This week, we're joined by our friend and the world's biggest Knicks fan, Anthony Donahue. Anthony, we're going to put you on the hot seat and tackle some futures today, both short-term and long-term. So are you bullish or bearish on Tom Thibodeau sustaining success in the second half of the season the same way he did in the first, with really stout defense that makes up for subpar offense?
Well, Chris, thank you for having me. I'm happy you put me on the spot. Nothing I can't handle. And I'm very bullish on it. But the problem is the Knicks have one of the toughest schedules in the entire National Basketball Association in the second half. So that's gonna be the hard part. But I am definitely bullish on it. Tom Thibodeau knows how to win. He figures out ways to win games, even if it's grinding it out. But boy, oh boy, that schedule is tough, with a lot of tough games. Even I take it one game at a time as a fan. But boy, even like you look in May, we're in LA, we got the Clippers, the Lakers. There's so many tough games.
Yeah, Anthony, I'm bullish on them continuing to succeed, but I do think the defense is going to regress a little bit. I think they would do well by adding something on offense prior to the trade deadline, so that offense isn't as inconsistent around Julius Randle. I think if they do that, they'll continue to win games and be right there in the playoff mix.
Anthony, are you bullish or bearish on the ceiling of future NBA All-Star for Obi Toppin?
Boy, I am not in love with Obi Toppin right now. Now, I'm not making no hot take. Maybe he'll be great in a few weeks. Maybe he'll be great next year. He just seems, and I've been at all the home games. I've watched just about every game. He just seems a little lost offensively. And I think he's a guy that really could use a great point guard, a guy maybe to get him in some pick and rolls, just going to the basket. Because on offense, boy, he does look a little lost. His athleticism is off the freaking charts. But I'm a little bearish on Obi Toppin, but I'm not going to crush a rookie right now.
I'm bearish, and here's why. I'm with Anthony. Like, I don't pass judgment on a rookie, especially after he's just been in the league for half a season.
Right, of course.
I think you give a player a few years to show you what he is and what he isn't. But for me with Toppin, like, if the Knicks are going to re-sign Randall, keep him here long term, which I would expect them to do, does Toppin have the opportunity to put up the kind of numbers or to be the kind of focal point of a team where he would make an all-star team? I don't know. It will be a tough lane for him because Randall plays his position. And if Randall is here for many years and he remains the focal point of the offense, where is that lane for Toppin where he can produce at an all-star level? That's what I wonder, kind of big picture, not even just about, an all-star bid for Toppin, just in general for Toppin. If Randall's going to be here for a while, what does that mean for Toppin? How do they fit him in?
Immanuel Quickley has been such a great surprise. Are you bullish or bearish on a ceiling of future NBA All-Star for Immanuel Quickley?
So I want to clear something up that I said on Twitter the other day, guys. So I said on Twitter, I don't see Immanuel Quickley as a point guard. And sometimes Knicks Nation, as much as I love them, sometimes they can be so sensitive. So if I say I don't think Immanuel Quickley is going to be a point guard, does not mean I don't like Immanuel Quickley. Duh. I love Immanuel Quickley. I could definitely see him maybe as an all-star at some point. I see him more as a Lou Williams and Jamal Crawford type of guy, even a little J.R. Smith. But also, I do need to realize that the NBA game is a lot different now. There's not, those pure point guards like the Kenny Andersons, the Mark Jacksons, the Rod Stricklands of the world. Those guys are, point guards are different. So I do have a high ceiling for Immanuel Quickley. I just look at him more as a scorer off the bench. So I love Quickley. I just don't see him as this floor general. That's all I'm saying.
The Mecca of basketball, the world's most famous arena. Fans are finally back, and with some very timely on-court success, we're seeing fans dancing through the Garden's hallowed halls, partying in the street, and even getting Little Kite and Randall to feel the city's magic after games. The Garden experience is an important return to normalcy in an abnormal season, and few know that better than our friend Anthony Donahue.
So Anthony, a lot of nights at the Garden, you've been one of 2,000 fans in the building. I mean, even if you're being loud, do you fill the arena up? What does it sound like?
So the crowd is different. The crowd is very different. It is not, the Garden's always rocking no matter what over the years. The crowd is not a guy in a suit that just left his Wall Street office. The crowd is basically 2,000 crazy Knicks fans that legit bleed orange and blue, half of them intoxicated, just going crazy. It's a different type of crowd. It's a crowd that just goes nuts.
So you feel like players feed off of the crowd even though it's just only 2,000 fans?
Oh yeah, these 2,000 nut jobs make noise. Oh yeah, they definitely do, especially that Indiana game. Oh yeah, so it's great just to be back, and there's nothing like live basketball at the Garden, especially the Knicks are a winning basketball team this year. It's definitely been a lot of fun. Takes you away from a little bit of the troubles of life right now.
Everybody, it's different for everybody now, obviously because of the COVID restrictions, but for you also it's different because these are the first games that you've been back at the Garden since your sister Gianna passed away. How has it been for you just in that regard?
Yeah, so I, ever since she passed away, my heart has just been completely broke. And, as the NBA season started, or even before the NBA season started, I always said to myself, there's certain places that are going to be really hard to go. The Garden was going to be the toughest because I've been bringing G to Knicks games since she was 4 years old. I had that famous picture of me with my Spreewell jersey, her in her Allen Houston jersey when she was 4. When I was online to get into the Golden State game, a fan was like, Anthony. I turned around and he was like, I'm so sorry about G. He's like, can I hug you? And I was like, sure. And then that first night, 10, 15 fans came up to me. And then every game since, it's just a bunch of different fans that find me, and they're like, I'm so sorry about G. She inspired me. You guys changed my life, this, that. And going into that game that Tuesday versus the Warriors, I didn't think about the public coming up to me about that, how much G inspired them. There's nothing like the human touch, the human interaction. So why tweets mean a lot, Instagram posts mean a lot, phone calls mean a lot. there's nothing like that person-to-person interaction, so there was a lot of tears, a lot of, hugs, and people were very emotional because, this is, even if you didn't know G and you were just a fan that followed this, it was a story that really took on a life of its own.
That's it for this week's episode of the Putback, presented by 888 Sport. For Anthony and Chris, I'm Ian Begley. We'll see you next week, everybody.
So who do you think is the most untradeable Knick? That's the subject of this week's SNY Fan Choice, presented by 888 Sport. Bet $20 on the Knicks or Nets and get $88 in free bets with promo code SNY88.